In the early hours of a cold morning in 1947, a blinding streak tore across the skies of New Mexico. It vanished beyond the desert horizon, leaving behind a trail of rumors, confusion, and fear. What followed in the small town of Roswell would ignite one of the most enduring mysteries of the modern era, and set in motion a secret investigation that would span more than 2 decades. This is the story of the United States government's most classified study into the unknown, Project Blue Book. The story begins at the dawn of the atomic age. The world was still reeling from the aftermath of the Second World War. New technologies had redefined the limits of destruction, and global powers were locked in a silent race for supremacy. The United States was testing experimental aircraft, rockets, and nuclear devices. But above the skies, something else was being seen. Strange, metallic disks, glowing orbs, and fast-moving craft that defied explanation. Pilots, radar operators, and ordinary citizens were reporting them by the hundreds. Newspapers called them flying saucers. The military called them unidentified flying objects. And the public called them one thing: proof that we were not alone. At first, the government dismissed the sightings as hysteria, but behind closed doors, the reports couldn't be ignored. In 1948, the U.S. Air Force launched its first official investigation into the phenomenon, codenamed Project Sign. The goal was simple: determine if UFOs posed a threat to national security. Investigators gathered thousands of witness statements, photographs, and radar logs. The findings were inconclusive, but one classified report suggested that some of the objects might not be of human origin. That conclusion was quickly buried, and Project Sign was replaced by a more cautious successor, Project Grudge. Project Grudge approached the phenomenon with skepticism, even hostility. The new directive was clear: explain away sightings whenever possible and keep the public calm. Any suggestion of extraterrestrial intelligence was to be dismissed as misidentification, optical illusion, or psychological delusion. But the sightings didn't stop. In fact, they increased. Pilots flying over the Korean peninsula reported luminous spheres following their jets. Civilians described objects hovering silently over power plants and military installations. Something was happening, and the explanations weren't satisfying anyone. Not the scientists, not the press, and not the American people. By 1952, public pressure reached a breaking point. Newspapers were filled with headlines about mysterious lights in the sky. Radio shows speculated about visitors from other worlds. In response, the Air Force created a new, more structured program, Project Blue Book. Headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, the operation would run for nearly 2 decades. Its mission: collect, analyze, and interpret all available UFO data. The man chosen to lead this effort was Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, a calm, analytical officer with a reputation for fairness. Ruppelt coined the term UFO, unidentified flying object, to replace the more sensational flying saucer. Under his command, Blue Book adopted a scientific approach, employing physicists, meteorologists, and radar experts to separate fact from fiction. From its first year, Project Blue Book faced an overwhelming challenge. Sightings were coming in at a rate of hundreds per month. Each report had to be logged, investigated, and categorized. Many were quickly explained: weather balloons, aircraft lights, astronomical phenomena. But a significant percentage remained unexplained, defying the laws of known aerodynamics. Radar returns showed objects traveling at speeds no human aircraft could match. Witnesses described shapes and maneuvers beyond any known design. Ruppelt, though cautious, began to suspect that some of these cases deserved more attention than his superiors wanted to give. The tension between belief and bureaucracy defined Project Blue Book. While the public was told the government was investigating every possibility, the truth was more complicated. Officially, Blue Book's goal was to determine whether UFOs were a threat to national security. Unofficially, it was also meant to reassure the public that there was nothing to fear. The message from the top was clear: don't stir panic. That message became even more urgent in July 1952, when a series of radar and visual sightings over Washington, D.C. captured national attention. For 2 consecutive weekends, air traffic controllers and fighter pilots reported strange blips over the nation's capital, fast-moving, luminous objects that outmaneuvered jets sent to intercept them. The Washington national sightings became headline news. The Pentagon was flooded with inquiries. The public demanded answers. In an unprecedented move, the Air Force held a press conference to calm the nation. Major General John Samford, the Air Force's Director of Intelligence, assured reporters that the phenomena were likely due to temperature inversions, a meteorological condition that could cause radar misreadings. The explanation was scientific, plausible, and convenient. Behind closed doors, however, not everyone was convinced. Classified Blue Book memos revealed that some officers privately admitted the explanation didn't fit all the data. Ruppelt later wrote that the Washington incident had deeply shaken him. He wanted to push the investigation further, but funding was cut, and interest from the Pentagon waned. By the mid-1950s, Project Blue Book became a bureaucratic formality, a clearinghouse for reports rather than a genuine investigation. Scientists brought in to consult often found their research constrained by political pressure. One of them was Dr. J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer from Northwestern University. At first, Hynek was skeptical, hired to debunk sightings scientifically, but over the years, he began to change his mind. Case after case showed credible witnesses describing impossible objects. As the years passed, Hynek became one of the few insiders to publicly suggest that some UFOs might represent something genuinely unknown, something beyond human technology. Despite official efforts to downplay the mystery, the files kept growing. Over the life of the program, Blue Book collected more than 12,000 reports. Roughly 700 remained unidentified even after exhaustive analysis. Among them were cases from commercial pilots, military officers, and radar specialists, trained observers unlikely to mistake Venus for a flying saucer. One chilling report described a near collision between a U.S. Air Force F-86 and a bright metallic sphere that accelerated vertically at impossible speed. Another, in Montana, captured objects on synchronized radar and film, evidence that could not be easily dismissed. The government's stance hardened as the Cold War intensified. Every unexplained object was a potential Soviet threat, a possible secret weapon. The CIA quietly commissioned its own review, the Robertson Panel, in 1953. The panel's conclusion was not to study UFOs further, but to reduce public interest in them. UFOs, it argued, could be used by enemy powers to clog communication channels or sow confusion during an attack. The recommendation was clear: educate the public to see UFOs as harmless misinterpretations. From that moment, Project Blue Book's role shifted, not to uncover the truth, but to manage perception. Throughout the 1960s, sightings continued. The space race fueled new fascination with what might lie beyond Earth. The Air Force, however, remained officially disinterested. Ruppelt had left the project, frustrated by its lack of transparency. Hynek remained, watching the institution he once trusted dissolve into skepticism. In 1966, a wave of sightings in Michigan drew intense media attention. Witnesses described glowing objects hovering over fields and lakes. When the Air Force suggested the lights were caused by swamp gas, ridicule followed. Congress demanded answers. Under mounting pressure, the Air Force commissioned an independent scientific study, the Condon Committee, led by physicist Dr. Edward Condon at the University of Colorado. The Condon Report, released in 1969, concluded that UFOs showed no evidence of being extraterrestrial or a threat to national security. It recommended that the Air Force terminate its investigation, and so, after more than 20 years, Project Blue Book was officially closed. The final tally of 12,618 reports, 701 remained unexplained. The official verdict: there was nothing to see. Case closed. But the mystery didn't end there. In the years following Blue Book's closure, researchers, journalists, and former insiders began to question what had really happened. Some claimed that the project had been little more than a public relations cover, while more secret investigations continued behind the scenes. Declassified documents hinted at hidden reports, missing case files, and parallel programs run by intelligence agencies. Witnesses from the military spoke of objects tracked on radar and recovered materials stored in classified facilities. For many, the closing of Blue Book wasn't the end of the investigation. It was the beginning of the cover-up. Dr. Hynek, once a government skeptic, became a leading voice for open scientific inquiry. He founded the Center for UFO Studies, arguing that the phenomena deserved serious research, not ridicule. In interviews, he admitted his time in Project Blue Book had changed him. He'd entered as a debunker and left as a cautious believer. "We owe it to ourselves," he said, "to ask the question honestly. Not what we want to believe, but what the evidence shows." Over time, Project Blue Book entered American folklore, a symbol of secrecy, intrigue, and the unknown. It inspired countless books, films, and television shows. The phrase itself became shorthand for hidden truths buried deep in government archives. Yet the reality, as revealed by historians, is both simpler and stranger. The men and women behind Blue Book were not part of a grand conspiracy. They were human: scientists, soldiers, bureaucrats, each wrestling with the limits of knowledge and the fear of the unknown. Some wanted to believe, others wanted to make it all go away. Between them lay a shadowed truth. Something was out there, and no one could fully explain it. Declassified records have since shown how deeply conflicted the Air Force was about the subject. While one branch worked to dismiss reports, another quietly monitored sightings near nuclear facilities and missile silos. Radar logs showed unknown objects appearing over restricted zones, shutting down weapons systems, then vanishing. Testimony from military personnel decades later confirmed that these incidents were real, though their explanations remain elusive. To this day, some of those cases remain officially unresolved. The decades that followed only deepened the mystery. As satellite technology advanced, as astronauts walked on the moon, as humanity pushed further into the cosmos, reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, now called UAPs, continued. In 2017, a new generation of whistleblowers revealed secret Pentagon programs studying these encounters under new names. The same questions returned, echoing from the dusty halls of Wright-Patterson. What are these objects? Where do they come from? And why do they keep appearing? For those who worked inside Project Blue Book, the answer was never simple. To Ruppelt, it was a puzzle the government wasn't ready to solve. To Hynek, it was a mystery demanding science, not secrecy. To the Air Force brass, it was a public relations problem. But to the witnesses, the pilots, radar operators, and civilians who saw things they could not explain, it was something else entirely. For them, Blue Book was not just an investigation. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest curiosity and its deepest fear. Even now, decades later, the files remain haunting. Typed pages yellowed with age describe metallic discs hovering in silence, lights darting across the stars, and objects that could accelerate faster than physics allows. Each report, no matter how ordinary or extraordinary, ends the same way, with a conclusion, a label, a category. Identified, misidentified, unidentified. But between those words, in the spaces where the data didn't fit, lies something larger, the acknowledgement that our understanding of the universe may still be incomplete. Inside Project Blue Book, science and secrecy collided. Belief and doubt wrestled for dominance. And in the end, what remained was not proof, but possibility. The possibility that amid the Cold War tensions and human fears, something extraordinary might have been watching us all along. Whether those lights in the sky were advanced aircraft, atmospheric illusions, or visitors from beyond, they forced humanity to look upward, to question, to imagine, and to wonder. Project Blue Book officially closed in 1969, but its legacy endures. It stands as a testament to the power of mystery, and to the human desire to seek truth even when it hides among the stars. Somewhere in a government archive, locked behind classified doors, thousands of pages of reports still rest in silence. Each one tells a fragment of a larger story, a story of discovery, denial, and curiosity. The story of how the United States government tried to explain the unexplainable. The lights in the sky are still seen. The questions are still asked, and the answers, like the stars themselves, remain distant, just out of reach. What began in the deserts of New Mexico in 1947 has become part of the fabric of human myth, woven into our collective imagination. The men of Project Blue Book might be gone, but their work lingers like a shadow at the edge of history, a reminder that for all our science and skepticism, the universe is still vast, mysterious, and full of wonder. Inside Project Blue Book, truth was not buried. It was cataloged, analyzed, and filed away, but the questions it raised continue to burn brighter than ever. Are we alone? Did the government uncover evidence of something beyond this world? Or was Project Blue Book simply a mirror reflecting our own fear of the unknown? We may never know. But somewhere, out there, above the endless sky, the answer may be waiting. And perhaps, someday, the final file will be opened, and the mystery of the U.S. government's UFO archives will at last be revealed.